Thanks for staying tuned to WION. I'm Samiksha Srivastava. Let's begin with the headlines. TVK Chief Vijay set to take oath as Tamil Nadu Chief Minister today, putting an end to almost 6 decades of alternating rule by the DMK and the ADMK. Iran's Revolutionary Guards warn they will strike US bases and assets across West Asia if Iranian tankers are targeted. This comes a day after US forces hit 2 Iranian vessels in the Gulf of Oman. Israel carries out strikes across Lebanon, killing at least 13 people in the south, while raids on a highway about 20 kilometers from Beirut that killed 4 others, marking another major escalation since the April 17th ceasefire. Israeli settlers on occupied West Bank force Palestinians to exhume the body of their father from his fresh-dug village grave. United Nations Human Rights Office condemns the incident. Dozens of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem to protest against Prime Minister Netanyahu's government, as well as ongoing conflicts across Israel's borders. Russian President Vladimir Putin says war in Ukraine winding down slams Western support for Kiev as the first day of 3-day ceasefire was marked by mutual accusations of violations. President Donald Trump tells Italian media that he's still considering relocating troops from bases in Italy. Reasons: Italy was not there when US needed it. Frontier Airlines plane hits, kills pedestrian at Denver Airport during takeoff, sparking an engine fire and forcing passengers to evacuate. Hungary's new health minister steals the spotlight with an impromptu performance on the steps of parliament following Peter Megaire's inauguration as prime minister. Vladimir Putin says Russia is nearing a major gas and oil agreement with China. Speaking on Saturday, he said negotiations are at advanced stage and that the deal could be finalized during his planned China visit later in May. We begin first up with the latest on the Russia-Ukraine war. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that the war in Ukraine is winding down, and this as he slammed the Western support for Kiev. In fact, earlier in the Victory Day parade, Putin had said that they were fighting an aggressive force in Ukraine, backed by all of NATO, and describing the war goals as just.
They promised assistance to Ukraine and began to escalate the confrontation with Russia, which continues to this day. I think the matter is coming to an end, but it's still a serious matter. The question arises, why? Firstly, they were expecting a crushing defeat for Russia, as we know well.
Putin also said that he's open to meeting with Ukrainian representatives in Moscow or in a third country, but stressed that such contacts should take place only if they are aimed at finalizing a long-term peace agreement than conducting preliminary negotiations.
Но только в том случае,
I do not propose this meeting, but if someone does, please let him come. Whoever wants to meet, let him come to Moscow. We will meet. It is possible to meet in a third country, but only if final agreements on a peace treaty are reached, which should be calculated for a long historical perspective. To participate in this event, or to sign something, but this should be the final point, not the negotiations themselves.
Putin said that during the discussions with President Donald Trump, Russia warned about potential security risks linked to diplomatic missions in Kiev and asked Washington to help ensure the safety of its embassy.
когда начали такой диалог
When we started such a dialogue with the administration of the United States of America, we warned them about it, pointed out the possible consequences, and asked them to do everything necessary to ensure the safety of their country's diplomatic representation. As a result of all these discussions, the initiative of the President of the USA, Mr. Trump, about 2 additional days of truce, arose.
в дополнительных 2 днях перемирия.
The Russian president has said that he has not received any proposal from Ukraine on a large prisoner swap announced by President Donald Trump. He even told that a prisoner swap was put forward to the Ukrainian side and that a list of 500 Ukrainian servicemen held in Russia was sent to Ukraine, but that Kiev later said they were not ready for the exchange to take place. Amidst this, both Russia and Ukraine have traded accusations of violating 3-day US-brokered ceasefire. The Russian Defense Ministry said that Ukrainian armed groups launched attacks using drones and artillery against its positions. However, it did not provide the exact number of violations that took place on Saturday. While the Ukrainian General Staff blamed 51 attacks from the Russian side, the Ukrainian Air Force said that Russia launched just 44 drones on Friday itself and that it was responding in kind in the eastern Kharkiv region. Casualties were reported on both the sides as Russian drones killed 2 civilians and wounded 3 others in Ukraine's central, eastern, Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions, while in Russia's western Belgorod regions reported 3 injuries by Ukrainian drone strikes. Now, a day after US strikes on 2 Iranian tankers in the Gulf of Oman, Iran's Revolutionary Guards have warned to target US sites in West Asia, and that is if its tankers come under fire by the US forces. This threat comes even as the US awaits Iran's response to its latest negotiating position. Earlier this week, a US fighter jet had fired on and disabled 2 Iranian-flagged tankers for attempting to violate the US blockade of Iranian ports. Later, the Iranian media claimed that its navy had responded with strikes. The confrontation in the Hormuz follows a proposal that was sent by the US earlier to Iran by mediator Pakistan. Iran's foreign ministry says that the proposal is still under review. Separately, Secretary of State Marco Rubio met Qatar's Prime Minister. In a statement that was released, both sides even stressed on the importance of close coordination to deter threats and promote stability and security across the West Asia region. Speaking to the press after the meeting, Rubio even said that he's expecting a response from the Tehran side soon despite the recent naval clash near the Hormuz Strait.
The normalizing of their controlling of international waterway is both illegal and it's just something that's unacceptable. And the world has to start asking itself, what is it willing to do if Iran tries to normalize a control of an international waterway? I think that's unacceptable. So, but we're expecting a response from them today at some point. We have not received that yet, as you know, in the last hour, but perhaps that will come. Their system is still highly fractured and a bit dysfunctional as well. So that may be serving as an impediment. I hope it's a serious offer. I really do.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed hope that the Iran conflict would end as soon as possible. Speaking with reporters at a news conference in Kremlin, Putin also revealed that Moscow had offered to take in Tehran's enriched uranium and that initially both US and Israel had agreed to the same, but it was only later that the US changed its position.
непростой вопрос. Нужно задать.
This is a very difficult and complex conflict, and it puts us in a difficult position, because we have good relations with Iran and genuinely friendly relations with the countries of the Persian Gulf without any exaggeration, and we continue to stay in contact with both sides. We hope that this conflict can be stopped, and as soon as possible. In my view, there are no longer any parties interested in continuing this confrontation.
Но нет уже заинтересованных лиц для продолжения этого противостояния.
Now, India has confirmed progress in the movement of Indian ships stranded near the Hormuz Strait amid tensions in the Gulf region. The Ministry of External Affairs says that 11 Indian vessels have now exited the strategically crucial waterway following diplomatic engagement with Iran, while 13 other ships remain in the Persian Gulf. India even says that it is in continuous talks with the Iranian authorities to ensure safe passage for the remaining vessels. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most critical maritime trade routes that handles near 20% of global oil and gas supplies. The latest development comes amid indications of easing tensions in the region after the US announced a temporary pause in blockade measures to allow room for negotiations with Iran. President Trump even said that Washington was holding back further action for time being, while Iran's military and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps later stated that ships would be allowed to transit through the strait, claiming that American threats had been neutralized. But tensions remain high. Trump has warned that US could resume military action at a much higher intensity if Tehran does not fully lift restrictions on the key maritime corridor. Iran had blocked the strait after US and Israel launched military strikes on 28th of February. The US later imposed a blockade on Iranian ports in the month of April. After diplomatic negotiations between Washington and Tehran broke down, parallelly, India says that it remains focused on ensuring the safe return of all Indian-linked vessels navigating the Gulf region. Shifting focus then, at least 17 people were killed as Israel launched fresh strikes across Lebanon, despite a ceasefire agreement aimed at halting cross-border hostilities that still remain in place. The attacks targeted Beirut and multiple areas in southern Lebanon and were described as some of the most intensive strikes to have taken place since the 3-week-old truce began. 3 Israeli drone strikes on vehicles just south of Beirut on Saturday killed 4 people. While Lebanon state media reported that an Israeli strike on the town of Saksakieh killed 7 people, including a young girl, and left 13 others injured. The country's health ministry has said that another strike on the city of Nabateh killed a Syrian national, while his 12-year-old daughter was seriously injured after drones reportedly struck the area twice. In the adjoining town, 1 person was killed and 13 others were injured, including 6 children and 2 women. Israel's defense forces said that they had targeted Hezbollah sites and added that they were aware of reports of civilian casualties, with the incident currently under review. The IDF has also said that several explosive drones were launched into the Israeli territory that left 1 army reservist severely wounded and 2 others moderately injured. Hezbollah, meanwhile, has claimed responsibility for at least 2 drone attacks that targeted IDF in northern Israel, saying that the strikes were in response to Israeli actions in Lebanon. Meanwhile, a massive protest broke out in Tel Aviv against Netanyahu over the handling of the government's ongoing conflicts along Israel's borders. Demonstrators accuse the government of misusing public funds and continuing to burden taxpayers amid the escalating security crisis.
I think that Iran is our enemy, but not the most dangerous enemy. The most dangerous enemy is interior, is is the ones who refuse to go to the army and don't work and don't pay taxes, but are parasites and live on account of our income tax.
Shifting focus to the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, after nearly a week of suspense, TVK chief and actor turned politician Vijay is all set to take oath as a Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Once sworn in, Vijay will become the first leader outside the DMK and the AIADMK to head the state government since 1967. Vijay now has to prove his majority on the floor of the assembly by 13th of May. Like Vijay's theatrical releases, his political debut proved to be one of the edge of the seat thriller as the TVK scrambled to garner a majority mark. In a blockbuster political debut, Vijay's TVK won 108 seats in the 234-member Tamil Nadu Assembly. However, the effective tally comes to 107 since Vijay contested from 2 constituencies. This left the TVK 11 short of the majority mark, which is 118. On 6th of May, the Congress was the first to extend support to the TVK after it ended its alliance with the DMK. With 5 Congress MLAs, the TVK's tally went up to 112, still 6 short of majority mark. 2 days later, left parties CPI and CPIM followed next, taking the tally to 116, close but still 2 short of the majority mark. The final piece in the puzzle came together after the VCK and the IUML extended support to Vijay's party, providing 4 crucial MLAs and taking TVK's tally well past the magic number. Both VCK and the IUML were part of the losing DMK alliance and took 5 days to come on board. With numbers finally on Vijay's side, the TVK chief even met the governor to stake a claim to form the government. This was Vijay's 4th meeting with the governor, and his bid was finally accepted after he produced the letters of support from allies. With this, actor Vijay is all set to take oath at 10 a.m. local time today. Now, tens of thousands gathered to witness the inauguration of centre-right leader Peter Magyar, who was sworn in as Hungary's Prime Minister. Thousands waved the Hungarian flag as he took the oath of office. He then came outside as military songs were played, received a formal salute, and watched as a giant Hungarian flag was raised over Parliament Square. In a defining moment, a politician stole the show with his dance steps as Magyar was seen clapping and cheering on. Giant screens in Parliament Square even showed the swearing-in ceremony as thousands gathered outside to witness the historic moment. Magyar defeated his predecessor, Victor, in a landslide April 12th election, ending his 16-year rule. Magyar swept to power, promising change after years of economic stagnation and strained ties with key allies under Orbán.
Megfogadjuk, hogy a következő években a bizalom.
We make a joint commitment that in Hungary, what unites us will once again be stronger than what divides us, that we will once again learn to think of ourselves as a nation, even if we come from different places and have different experiences, or we voted for a different political community.
Magyar's Tisda party secured a constitutional majority, giving him the power to reverse reforms critics have long said have weakened the country's democracy.
Én Magyar Péter
fogadom,
hogy
Magyarországhoz és adnak
Well, the US has resumed its blitz of attacks on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean, and in the latest attack, 2 people have been killed and 1 still remains injured. A video has also been released by the US Southern Command, which captures the vessel moving across the water, and that is right before it is struck by what seems to be a US missile. The footage briefly cuts to black before showing the boat consumed by flames. According to Southcom, the vessel was struck in the Eastern Pacific region and one person even survived the attack. The strike, that is, US Coast Guard has been notified to launch a search and rescue mission. The previous strike took place on Tuesday in the same region. It killed 3 people who the US claims were suspected drug traffickers. Since the month of September last year, there have been 58 strikes on boats, resulting in a death toll of approximately 192 people with just 4 survivors. The Trump administration has described and defended these attacks as war against narco-terror operated by Latin America. However, these attacks have been under intense scrutiny, especially after the US failed to provide any concrete evidence of whether or not these boats were actually transporting drugs. Legal experts argue that many of these deaths amount to extrajudicial killings. Since the start of 2026, this is the 7th known US attack on boats. In April and March, at least one attack was noted for each month, while in the month of February and January, there were 2 attacks per month. Some interesting news then. President Donald Trump's net worth has nearly tripled since just before he returned to the White House. According to data from Forbes, Trump's family has estimated wealth it has reached $6.5 billion, which is the highest point recorded since at least 2001. The president and his family have gradually built their net worth over time, starting under $2 billion in 2001. However, 2008 financial crisis hit Trump's wealth, and since then their wealth climbed until his first term in office. During the first presidency period, the family's wealth dropped significantly. It was fairly steady in the 4 years between his presidencies, ending at $2.3 billion in 2024. But under Trump 2.0, the family's wealth has surged to roughly $6.5 billion. Trump and his family have made $4 billion in profits from last year, with about $3 billion coming from crypto businesses. The Trump's family net worth consists of $2.1 billion in crypto and liquid assets, $1.5 in golf clubs and resorts, $1.5 billion in golf clubs and resorts, $1.28 billion in President's media company, $1.28 billion in real estate, and $454 million in other businesses. Trump's net worth is higher than that of other recent presidents. When former President Barack Obama left office in 2017, Fortune estimated his family's wealth worth at about $12.2 million. Obama's wealth has risen post his presidency. In fact, according to Forbes, former President Joe Biden's wealth was around $10 million before he exited office. The criticism is not just about the president's wealth surge, but questions revolve around if the enrichment is supported by federal policies. Critics say that the wealth surge is driven largely by Trump's family crypto ventures and high-value mining deals backed by US government support. Trump, before running for second term, had called crypto as fraud, but reversed his stance during his campaign. Recently, reports surfaced which linked the Trump's sons to a $1.6 billion Kazakhstan project that was supported by government policies. Reports also highlight billions in profits from crypto initiatives, some even tied to controversial partners. The developments have prompted criticism from lawmakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren, who warns of national security and corruption risks under President Trump. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump invested in Skyline Builders, which merged with Cove Kaz Capital to form Kaz Resources. The firm is developing the world's largest undeveloped tungsten deposit. It's a strategic high melting point metal primarily. The $1.6 project was supported by the Export-Import Bank and the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. The project received direct backing from President Trump and top cabinet officials. While there is currently no evidence that the brothers knew of the pending government financing at the time of investment, the overlap of private stakes and even federal support has raised conflict of interest concerns. Senator Warren has even criticized the Trump's family's World Liberty Financial for deploying its one stable coin dollar on AB Chain, a network that's tied to a resort project involving individuals later sanctioned by the US Treasury. Although those individuals were removed and no direct illicit funding link was proven, Warren argued that the case underscores the need for digital asset legal legislation to protect national security. The White House has dismissed the criticism as tired partisan narrative. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of our broadcast. World DNA to continue. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
As Mortal Kombat 2 hits the big screen, we look at all the films inspired by video games. Know all about concerts that have made Copacabana Beach a global stage. And get a quick roundup of Met Gala 2026. All this and much more with me, Rhythm Sharma, on WION E-Club at these times.
Giant telescopes scanning the cosmos. Air taxis that could change city travel. AI smart glasses helping visually impaired people. And a futuristic city powered by robots and self-driving cars. From space exploration to the future of mobility to AI-powered living. All this and more coming up on this episode of Tech It Out at these times.
On Wings this week, we show how Leh in India's north received the sacred Piprawa relics of Lord Buddha for the first time. We also look at one of Asia's largest rose gardens in Ooty. And festivals worldwide, only on WION. World is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business